Welcome to Dear Departed, a podcast series dedicated to remembering those people who made Lindsey Wilson College a special place and left behind an enduring legacy of love. On the campus of Lindsey Wilson College, many know her name. In fact, the main library is named after her. Her name was Katie Murrell, and she was a special person, known and loved by many. But who was Katie Murrell? I'm Scott Ham, and I'm here interviewing Annie Foltz to find out more on Katie Murrell and her life.
Okay, I am King Foltz, and I live in Wayland, Kentucky, home of King Kelly Coleman, and I am 72, I think.
Okay, how did you know Katie Murrell?
Well, she was a friend of the family, and she and my grandmother were really good friends, and she visited and just was kind of like a grandmother to me. She had never been married, and she just was like another grandmother.
I discovered Katie Murrell like most at Lindsey Wilson College, from the library, being named in her honor. I had mentioned the library on Lindsey Wilson College's campus one night to my great aunt, and she shot up excitedly and said that it was named after Cousin Katie. She was like her aunt growing up. This was what made me want to do the Dear Departed podcast, and why I chose to do it over Katie Murrell.
Could you describe, Katie's personality, her qualities that stood out to you, things like that?
Yes, she was an absolutely beautiful woman and had a big heart. She was just as pretty on the inside as she was her outward features. She was very kind and thoughtful, was a very classy lady, and I just loved her dearly.
Was Katie, always into education throughout her life?
Well, she was she never would tell her age, but she was she was the librarian at Lindsey when I was old enough to remember her, and she loved being a librarian, and I remember sometimes on weekends I'd go over to the library when she'd be working, and then of course she lived in the faculty house, and I would go over there sometimes and see her. She was a very educated lady and had bouquets of old books, just volumes after volumes of old-time books, and she, I'm sure, loved to read. And I don't really know much other than her being the librarian.
Was Katie, was she always into books, when you were growing up, when you knew her? Did she always just have a love and passion for books?
Oh, yes. And she shared that with most people, and for sure with me. I remember when I was a little girl, and she would come stay with my grandmother. I would always go spend the night when she came to visit, and every night that she was there, I'm thinking she would read to me before I went to bed. And one of the lots of times it was nursery rhymes and stories like that. And one of the stories I still remember today she would read me was Little Black Sambo. And I don't know if kids still know that story today or not, but that was one of my favorite little stories that she would read to me. So she shared her love of books with me, and I'm assuming most everybody else.
Oh, yeah, like, what's your favorite memory of Katie, like a personal memory of you and her, or just one of her that, that sticks in your mind?
Well, I remember one weekend she was going to Louisville for something. I can't remember what really her official business was, but she took me with her to Louisville, and we went to see a movie. I can't really remember what the movie was. I don't know if it was The Sound of Music or what, but anyway, after the movie was over, I remember she took me to a store and bought me a little transistor radio. I can see it just as plain as anything. It was a little brown transistor radio, and that evidently was the new thing, and it just come out. And that was a special memory that I have with her. Another little memory that was always special. She was, how can I say this? She always talked about Eskimo kisses. She wouldn't, I don't remember there being a lot of hugging, but the way she let me know that she loved me was with what she called Eskimo kisses. And all that was, you rubbed your noses together. And I don't know if Eskimos really did that or not. That's another favorite memory I have of her. We do Eskimo kisses. And now remember, I'm a little girl when I'm telling these little stories to you. But she was a very special lady, and I think a lot of people that knew her felt that same way about her.
I thought it was interesting how, like you said, she never told anyone her age. I wonder, why she was like that.
I don't really know. I just don't know, but that was something she didn't. I don't know that she ever told anybody her age. She was a beautiful lady, and I don't know if she was actually older than she looked or what, but she just wouldn't tell her age.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add about Katie Murrell?
Well, she was just a very special lady to me, and my oldest, so I only have one daughter, but my oldest child was actually named after her. I always called Katie Murrell, I always called her Cousin Katie, and her real name was Catherine, and I named my girl after her. Her name is Catherine, and we call her Katie.
Oh, so I didn't know that.
That's something special. Of course, too, I'll tell you this, she was named after Cousin Katie. She was also named after your mother, Catherine Jones. So she had two namesakes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this so much.
Now that we have heard from Annie Foltz, someone who loved and cherished Katie Murrell, let's hear from another person who truly loved and appreciated Katie, Catherine Ham. So stick around, everyone, so you don't miss out on hearing and learning about the incredible life of Katie Murrell.
So, how did you know Katie Murrell?
I was named for Miss Katie Murrell. She was my grandmother's first cousin. Cousin Katie, as I called her all my life, was an only child, and my grandmother was really like her sister. She was involved in our family just like an aunt.
Katie Murrell was a significant person in everyone's lives she touched, especially Annie's and Catherine's. She was very ahead of her time, as she was one of the first girls in our home county of Russell County, Kentucky, to attend college. Another fun fact about Katie is she went to Lindsey Wilson College in the early years of the college, when it was a 2-year school. We can all tell she had tremendous love for Lindsey Wilson College.
So, did you have like a close relationship with her?
Very close relationship. As I say, I was named for her. Her name was Catherine Euphelia Murrell. I'm glad I got the Catherine rather than the Euphelia. After I was very close to her, she thought a whole lot of me. I inherited a lot of things from her by carrying the name. She was very proud of me. When I was 5 years old, she wanted me to pick out my silver pattern, which I did. And she was a very classy lady, very ahead of her time, a wonderful teacher. She taught in Bedford, Kentucky high school before coming to Lindsey. And I don't know, but I would say that was in probably the late 30s or early 40s. I was born in 42, and she was, the way I remember it, she was in Columbia at that time. She was always at my grandmother's every Christmas, every Easter, every holiday, my birthday. She came many weekends, and she was a very well-to-do lady, not only in school or in the head, and did a lot of special programming. She helped many children at Lindsey that didn't have money, that no one ever knew. She paid part of their tuition and so forth that was never, ever known.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, but was Katie always into like education, like all throughout her life, or like did she always love learning?
Yes, she, as I say, she started out in high school in Bedford, Kentucky, and then came to Lindsey and lived and worked there the remainder of her life. She retired there I really don't know, but I'd say she's probably pushing 80 when she retired. And, of course, the library is named for her. I remember I was at Lindsey a whole lot of the time. I remember a lot of the teachers that were there many, many years ago. Miss Goodhue, I remember that when I was a little girl, they had a training school that they called it, and Helen Flatt was the one over the training school, and they always had a big May Day program that was, it was a classy act way back then, and we always went to it. And she owned a home there in Columbia, but she lived in the faculty house. Miss Nomi Dix Winston was one of her good friends that lived there, and the faculty house was next door to the president's home there on campus. I do not know if that is still there or not. But
Was Katie always into books? Because like you said, the library at Lindsey's named after her, of course, we all know. Like, was she always like a big into reading, or was she always big into books? Like,
Well, she wanted everything up to date, the best of everything for Lindsey Wilson and the library, and as far as reading was concerned, yes. She wanted everybody to be ahead of any place anywhere else. Now, of course, at this time, Lindsey was just a 2-year college.
yeah, I do remember that being switched to a 4-year.
Yeah.
Around the 70s or 80s, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Do you remember like a specific memory of Katie, like when you were around her, like something that's like stuck with you that you remember her by?
Yes, it was always funny. There was a lady on the street that leads up to the hill on the left-hand side before you get to the main drag there. Angel Food Cakes had just begun to come out, and every holiday or every time she came home, Cousin Katie never did drive. So we would always have to go to Columbia and get her for the weekend. We'd go on Friday and pick her up and take her back on Sunday. And she would always order an Angel Food Cake. And on the way to Jamestown, we'd stop and pick up the Angel Food Cake. Now, as I said, I was very, very special to her. When we got married, she had a bridesmaid's luncheon for us, for all the wedding party and so forth. And at that time, that was completely heard of. As I say, Cousin Katie was always ahead of the game and very, very well-to-do. That was always my thinking of Cousin Katie.
So she was always ahead of her time. She was a little bit ahead of her time.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know how like Katie found Lindsey Wilson? Like, did she like hear about it from just listening?
Yes, she went to Lindsey Wilson. My grandmother and she attended Lindsey Wilson as young girls, and that time my grandmother was born in the same era, and that was unheard of for girls back that far, especially from Jamestown, to go to school. But she and my grandmother, who was named Addie Mae Jones at that time, went to Lindsey to school.
Did Katie have like a big role on campus? Like, I know she was a librarian, and the library's obviously named after her, but like, what else did she do at Lindsey, like, that you can remember?
She was into everything. She sponsored this, she sponsored that. She, as I say, she had her finger in every pot. As to anything for the betterment of the college, she was involved.
So she just wanted to see Lindsey grow and be the best.
Yes, she did, and she had great influence on the Lindsey Wilson College. She most certainly did.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about Katie?
Something went through my mind just a minute ago. As I say, she never did drive. Oh, yes. She never did want anybody to know how old she was. And I never did know how old she was. And it had to go on her death certificate. And when she would be admitted to the hospital and so forth, she would never tell anybody her age. And I always thought that was so unusual. But she was in her 90s when she died.
So she just wanted to keep everybody guessing, huh?
Yep, she wanted to keep everybody. She just liked, and she was she was very religious lady, very good Christian lady, but she also had a little streak. You could see in her eyes, they would just twinkle, and she'd like to get jokes on you and all that. But as I say, I know personally, and I have had, when she died and that sort of thing, people would come and call and so forth. My mother was her caretaker, and we saw after. I mean, she was she was family, and just like, I mean, she was a main part of our family, always. But people would come and say,
I will never forget Miss Katie helped me. She paid for this for me. She bought a new suit for me to have to wear to this. That was her way. She was always helping and living for the other person.
Well, I appreciate you doing this interview.
You've been listening to Dear Departed. This podcast series is produced by students affiliated with the Media Studies program at Lindsey Wilson College in Columbia, Kentucky. Copyright 2024.